ChatGPT is giving me an unfair advantage in the Etsy print-on-demand space, and this is exactly how. So in a perfect world, let's say you're recreating a listing, and this is an example listing. You'd want to potentially take a lot of the SEO, not necessarily copy it, but take a lot of the SEO, rewrite it in your own words, and get their best keywords, and then improve upon that listing, right? Because if you find a listing where there's a lot of opportunity, but there's not necessarily a lot of competition, and that listing is already selling and already doing well, then you know something about that SEO is working, something about that design is working. And so you want to have your best opportunity and shot to emulate exactly what that listing is, but yet improve it a little bit, both in the design and in the SEO, so that you can ultimately outrank that product and sell more. So in a perfect world, like I said, you would have that approach where you would take a lot of their SEO and you'd put that in your title, your description, and your tags. But what happens if, one, you're creating a design yourself, or two, you're doing something like I and my VA do, where we bulk copy a lot of these listings and then put our own spin on it? And so what he does is he'll send it back to me with the same exact title that we found on Etsy, right? And so then that gives me an indicator of exactly what it is and how to improve upon it. So if that's the case and you don't necessarily have the full-on listing to model the SEO, you can take that listing and that concept into ChatGPT to get a well-written but keyword-stuffed title very quickly, also a well-written and keyword-stuffed description very easily, and ultimately get great tags. I know it sounds dumb, but like one of the things that used to trip me up and annoy me the most when I was creating Etsy listings was like going through and creating all the tags. Because when you're going through and you're creating a listing, like you might have 3 to maybe 4 keywords in your mind that you're like, all right, these are great, like I'm gonna put these in my tags. And then like the 4th or 5th one, you're sitting there like, all right, what tags do I put in now? And so you either need to do keyword research, or you're ultimately just putting in some random tags in there, which isn't what you want to do. Because if you ever decide to run ads to that listing, it's gonna spend money on keywords that aren't relevant to your product, and that is not what you want. So I use ChatGPT to create great titles, great descriptions, and the best tags without really thinking about it very quickly. We're talking about like 2 to 3 minutes here max, probably even less. And that's great for organic search because you're going to rank higher in a lot of different search results that are relevant for your product. And it's great if you ever decide to run ads, because then you will only be ranking in search results that are relevant to your design and relevant to your product. Because one of the things that you'll notice if you start running ads is like, if you're not doing this, a lot of times Etsy will categorize your product as something that is slightly similar, but not really exactly what it is. And then you'll be spending ad dollars on searches that are relevant, but not exactly what it is. So people might be looking for something similar, but they're never going to actually buy your product. They might just click on it to see it. So this is actually extremely important and something I highly recommend you do if you're in the print-on-demand space. But honestly, for all e-commerce, this is something that you should consider. So 2 ways that I do this is I take it into ChatGPT, and these are the 2 prompts that I give. The first one is I'm creating an Etsy listing for blank, and then you would describe exactly to ChatGPT what it is that you're creating, right? What's the Etsy listing? That says, because a lot of times I'm creating a mug or a t-shirt with like a slogan or a catchphrase on it. So I want to give ChatGPT that information. What does it exactly say on there, right? Because tell them why that's relevant, why you think people would search for it. Like what's a one-liner that is important to the customer that would ultimately buy that product? And then tell ChatGPT to write you a well-written, keyword-stuffed, but well-read description for that product. So a perfect example of this is I'm creating an Etsy listing for an entrepreneur shirt, because that's what it is, right? That says unemployed CEO. You're telling ChatGPT what it exactly says, because why? Because most entrepreneurs want to tell people they're their own boss without having to actually say that to people, right? And I've said this in countless other tutorials. One of the easiest ways that you can get sales, both in like the t-shirt game overall, but especially the print-on-demand space, is like put something on a shirt or on a mug or whatever that almost is like an identity that people want to convey to other people, right? That's what people look for, even if they're not like consciously doing it. And then just tell it to write a well-written keyword stuff description, but that's also well-read, because if you don't necessarily say it needs to read well, they'll just stuff it full of keywords and it will always read as well as it can for that product. So I'll say that, I'll put that into ChatGPT. I'll show you an example of that here in a second. And then I'll grab that, I'll put that in the description. And then after that's done, I'll say, please write me a well-written but keyword stuff title for this same whatever it is, this same mug, this same t-shirt, whatever, that's under 140 characters total, because that's what you're limited to on Etsy. So for example, if we were to tell ChatGPT that same exact thing, it would spit this out to us. Introducing our remarkable Unemployed CEO t-shirt, a clever and tongue-in-cheek way for entrepreneurs to express their independent spirit and unconventional career path. This unique shirt, and you can see how well written that is, so that if somebody's reading this, is really going to speak to that exact avatar and potential customer. But also there's plenty of relevant keywords stuffed in here that, again, is good for you organically, but also if you ultimately decide to run ads, because you're telling Etsy, if you put this in your description, in your title and your tags, that this is exactly what your product is, right? So they're going to potentially rank you for a lot of those relevant keywords a lot more than if you didn't give them that information. That's why it's so important. They'll also tell you what the key features are, which is really cool, and you want to put this in your description as well. I wouldn't paste your keywords in your description when it tells you to do this. Like, it'll give you all the keywords that it's stuffed in there already, because you don't need to repeat them. They're already stuffed here in the description, right? So I would take everything from the key features all the way up to the top of that description. Then you just want to come down and say, all right, please write me a well-written keyword stuff title for that same, in this sense, it's a t-shirt that's under 140 characters long. And there you go. Unemployed CEO t-shirt, bold entrepreneurial fashion, independent spirit, networking attire, perfect gift for entrepreneurs, creative career merch. That doesn't read the best, but it's solid. And in my experience, it usually does a very good job, at least a lot better than I would come up with myself if I was trying to come up with a good keyword and well-written stuff title. So that's how I've been approaching it lately with a lot of my listings. So let's do an example of one more to show you that this isn't just a fluke. We'd come down, we'd say, I'm creating an Etsy listing for let's say a mug this time. So we'll say, in one of my last videos, I covered the Schitt's Creek example of how I was able to go through and cartoonize a lot of the Schitt's Creek characters and then take their most popular sayings and put them on mugs and t-shirts that people would ultimately be searching for. And that recipe, not necessarily with that sitcom itself, but with other sitcoms that are very similar, was very effective for me for the past few months. So let's say I'm creating an Etsy listing for David from Schitt's Creek that says, and then you'd find one of his top catchphrases here and you'd put that in there. So for example, if you were to take this one, I'm trying very hard not to connect with people right now. That's what you'd put into ChatGPT. And then why? Because he's well known for that catchphrase and lots of people will be searching for it, for a mug with it on it. A lot of fans of the show will be searching for it, or a mug with it on it. Write me a well-written keyword stuff but well-read description for this product. And let's see what it comes up with. All right, so introducing our fantastic, I'm trying very hard not to connect with people right now, mug. A hilarious tribute to David from Schitt's Creek and his iconic catchphrase. So you get to picture how well this does at writing descriptions that are both keyword stuff and read well for the customer. It also lays out the key features, which I think are great and really give you a leg up on the competition, because a lot of people won't read through your description, but they might look at the bullet points and the key features, and obviously you want to rank for all the keywords that are in here. Also, not only does it give you the keywords in your description, it also lays out a bunch of keywords that you can then utilize in your tags on Etsy, right? So you are limited in the amount of, characters you can have in a tag. So some of these wouldn't fit, like David Schitt's Creek mug probably wouldn't fit, but you can utilize these keywords to come up with good tags. So you're not sitting there for 10 minutes trying to come up with great tags yourself or doing research to find out what tags you should utilize. And so this is an easy way that I'm getting a leg up using ChatGPT in whatever that was, 30 seconds to a minute. I highly recommend that you do this in your own business, not just for Etsy, but for all your listings across all the places that you sell for in your e-commerce business.